1, 2, test, test. Microphone on. Camera on. There we go. Hello, everybody. And welcome to Politics, Culture, and Some Other Shit. Yeah, it's been a minute. I've been very busy. I got so stupidly busy that if I had to come out here and put down the few hours that I need to do these podcasts at any point over the past month, I would have said I would have been being irresponsible. So, yeah. But I think I'm going to be able to push on a wee bit and get these done and turn them out regular. I think what I need to do is dedicate every week. I'm going to dedicate to two projects with the Politics, Culture, and Some Other Shit. And I think I'm going to do a live stream. Don't know what night of the week yet, but I'm going to do it. And I'll put out the podcast in the middle of the week. Or maybe towards the end of the week. I don't know. I haven't decided. But I think that's what I'm going to do. I need to lay myself out a wee schedule. And I'll be able to stick to it. So, yeah, what's been happening with me? Remember I had that job that I hated, the driving thing? Don't do that anymore. So I'm basically back to what I was doing pre-COVID, and it's taken me this long to get back. The band is back touring, and I have a little printing business that I had got shut down over COVID, and it's back. I've opened it. It's back and opened now as well. So it's great. I'm delighted, and as I said, I'm very busy, and that's why I had to stop doing the podcast, because I was working my ass off at getting the first month or whatever it was of the business being opened, and long days, long nights, and I was still trying to write for the band and do things for the band. So it was just this had to be parked. So that's where I am. So what are we going to talk about? Let me turn my microphone down. I can see that it's peaking a little bit into the red. 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, it looks that looks all right. So yeah, I'm going to start with the culture bit, and as you probably know, I'm going to do. There's a poster there. So I'm just off this tour. Just literally came back yesterday. Got home around 7ish. Yeah, it was great. It was our best UK tour yet. We started in Sneaky Pete's in Edinburgh, and we finished in St Patrick's Irish Club in Leamington Spa, and all the gigs were really, really well attended. Our best attended UK tour ever, and we've done a few. Except for there was one gig in Bradford. There was reasons as to why that was. There was literally 5 or 10 people showed up for that one. But there was reasons for that. I won't go into them. Heads will roll, I assure you. But beyond that, every gig was fantastic. It was brilliant. We were so happy, and we never got to tour with Mudlow, unfortunately. This time we normally do that, but next time we'll make sure of it. Again, reasons that I won't go into. The tour was fantastic. Delighted. We sold all our merch. We just sold out of it really quick. We brought hundreds of t-shirts with us, and we came back with a handful. Everything else was gone. Posters, badges, stickers, caps, everything. It was brilliant. And so we figured out what it was. We think we figured out what it was. We got the blue lights bounce, we call it. We got every gig I was sort of saying, we're going to play this song, it was on a TV show, Blue Lights. Has anybody ever heard of it? Anybody see that? And every room, a big cheer went up, and people came and told us that they discovered us because of Blue Lights, which is a BBC drama, by the way, for those of you that don't know what it is. So we got that, which was great. Delighted. We've had stuff in movies before, on a couple of TV shows, but we got paid for them and stuff, but we couldn't honestly say that there was a tangible bounce from it. Not significant anyway. Maybe a few people. Certainly not on par with what we feel we got from this, what we experienced on this tour. So there you go. Isn't that class? So the tour was great. Thank you to everybody that came to see us. Thank you to all the bookers. All the venues. I can urge you to please go to live gigs. Some of the venues are getting their asses kicked. And a lot of people haven't resumed old habits post-COVID. And I could see it in a few people's faces. I could see the weight. And these are good people that I care a lot about. And it was kind of heartbreaking, really. We need to start getting back out into the world again. Well, yous do. I do. If yous don't, yous need to. If I certainly. And I'm not judging you, by the way. I understand perfectly. I do get it. Being locked in your house for 2 years, you're not going to get over that overnight. And you will develop new habits, and you may think you prefer them. But there's nothing quite as good as a live show, and you need to go and do that. And you're not going to get a live show sitting in your fucking living room, so get out there. So there we go. That's. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't think I have anything else to say. I'm going to do. I'll maybe do. Well, might do it while I'm sitting here actually. After this, I'll do a wee video and put it up on our Facebook page. The Bonneville's Facebook page. So, let's do it. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about... There's been so much. I took time off from podcasting and doing these videos purely, as I will have explained. But in the interim period, the world went fucking mental. And it seems to be... it seems to be headed that way. The political, socioeconomic, military activities and landscapes are all in hyperactive mode, as they have seemed to have been going and headed that way for many years now. I have, in the past couple of months, where I haven't been doing anything, I've had a lot of time to think without comment on them. And one of the things that happened while I wasn't podcasting was the 20th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq. And I thought a lot about that. First of all, the crime that it was, and that no one has been punished for it. No one has been punished for it. It seems to me the only person that has paid any sort of a penalty is Julian Assange, for leaking the information through his organisation WikiLeaks about American military war crimes and others, who's currently rotting to death in a Victorian hellhole in London at the behest of the American government, who are trying to extradite him via Sweden on a trumped up, disprovable, easily disprovable charge, and which has been completely discredited, in order so that they can bring him to America and torture him to death in an American prison, which is what they will do. And that's not hyperbole. They will do that. That's what's going to happen to him. The man is literally fighting for his life, and he's not in good health anyway at the minute. I don't know how much longer this extradition is going to go on, but if he doesn't beat it soon, he's probably going to die in an English prison, never mind an American one. So he seems to be the only person that has paid a price for that. 1 million dead Iraqis. And the people that did it are being rehabilitated on the television, on the talk shows. Michelle Obama gives George W. Bush a wee hug, says he's a great guy, one of the nicest people he knows. And it got me thinking that was the time it all changed. It all changed after that. That was the moment that they got away with it. They've gotten away with it all in the past as well. but that was a big one. And I can't help thinking that the invasion of Iraq and the subsequent lack of anything happening to those what did it is going to go down in history. And it's a moment that the establishments across the world, the military-industrial complex and all the corporate and the capitalist machinery became emboldened. It's not easy for me to say that word. Emboldened. And since then we've seen it get worse and worse and worse and worse. And they're getting away with more and more and more, right up to the present day, where the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, which has been shown now to be nothing more than a proxy war. An entire generation of young Ukrainians and others, older Ukrainians, an entire generation of Ukrainian manhood has been wiped out. And if you go onto the news to find out about it, you find out the exact opposite of the truth. If you read the newspapers. Which brings me to this point. Twice this week I've been asked by people. Just this week, I get asked this quite a bit, but just this week I've been asked this twice. Where's my bullshit filter come from? How do I, as I see it, and as they see it, because they did ask me the question, how do I navigate my way through it without believing it? And how do I, where does my filter for this stuff come from? Well, I'll tell you, as I told someone last night and someone during the week, during last week, I've got to the point where I don't watch corporate media. I don't watch it at all. Anything, BBC, ITV, Channel 4 News, American news channels, I don't watch any of them. I don't read any newspapers. I don't think they've always been as bad as they are now, but what they are now is nothing more than literal stenographers for our establishment interests. The CIA, the British state, and across the world, the embedded establishment interests that exist in every country in the world. But in the West, I'm not particularly au fait with what goes on in Africa or South America, for example. But I know that in Europe, these newspapers and these media outlets are literal. It's not that they can't be trusted. They're liars. They lie. And I will give you an example. One very recent and something that should have brought down governments. And it's this. The blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline. We know who did it. We know who did it when it happened. I knew immediately, as soon as I heard, I knew it was the Americans that did it. I didn't know the details. Seymour Hersh revealed those in his article on his Substack, which if you haven't read, I read it out in full on my last but one podcast. If you don't want to read it yourself, I read it for you. We know who did it. We know they did it. We knew who did it at the time. The subsequent consequences of that act are going to torpedo the European economy. We're now paying 4 times the price for liquefied natural gas to be shipped from, guess where, the USA, to replace what we lost, a cheap, well, not us here in Ireland, but the Germans and other parts of Europe, but the Germans in particular, and that's important. That's important for a reason, because Germany is the biggest economy in Europe, so that's why that's significant. The Russians supplied that cheap, regular, reliable energy to the German economy. The Americans blew it up in order to do what? To open up those markets for the American gas and oil industry to sell to Europe. Now, there's an issue there, as if that wasn't enough. America isn't going to be able to provide everything that was sunk. They're not going to be able to bring enough over. They don't have it. They give us what we can. So we're going to take from other, we're going to buy from other people. We're buying from Pakistan. We're buying from India. We're buying from other places. Where are they getting it from? Russia. India is being a middleman. They're just doubling the price, trebling the price, and you can take as much as you like. And that's what's happening. And we know this has happened. The German factories are literally being unbolted from the factory floors and being shipped to the Far East. And the BASF, the biggest BASF, the biggest chemical company in the world, is moving to America because they can't get the energy that they need to operate in Germany anymore. And that is a German company. So we know who did it. We know why they did it. And the silence from every politician in Europe, bar a few, Mick Wallace and I've forgotten their name right now. Excuse me, if I remember, I will let you know. In the European Parliament, those are the only people that are shouting this out for what it is. And the silence from the media is unbelievable. I am stunned. Literally, I'm stunned. I cannot believe that Germans aren't rioting. I don't understand how this situation that Germany has been put in, an ally of America, an ally, a fellow NATO member, the biggest terrorist act on national infrastructure in human history. The German political class are silent. The German media, silent. Not a fucking word. So, why would I trust them? Same here. I know what goes on here. This is what this podcast does. I talk about this stuff all the time. And you go to the media, you go to the BBC, not a word. Or a spun to reflect the opposite of the truth. So, to answer the question, first thing, don't go anywhere near these people. Don't let them. Why would you let a poisoner put poison in your food? Why would you do it? If you must endure it, do it with such a critical eye that you know you're being lied to. The BBC came out yesterday and admitted that everything they said about Jeremy Corbyn during his campaign was a lie. They knew they were lying and they admitted it yesterday. 5 years after the man's been crucified. 3 years after he's been crucified. And now he's been kicked out of the Labour Party. Just in the nick of time. Well done, BBC. Great work. So why would you go there? Why would you go there? So, where do you go to get your news? You follow individuals, and this is why social media is important. This is why the Twitter files was so important. Elon Musk, he's an asshole, but fair play. You give credit where credit is due. He has exposed how in bed with, again, the CIA and the intelligence interests of America, firstly, but other countries, there's no reason to suspect that they're not exactly the same. He's exposed how in bed with social media, these intelligence organizations are. So first thing you have to do is go to this is why it's important that those places stay free and open. You can't be censoring people on them despite the fact you don't like what they say, unless it's illegal. I'm no problem with it. There's there's assholes everywhere. You can't silence them, because they come and silence you next. They come and silence the people that you listen to. Certain people I listen to, tumbleweeds on Twitter, commentators on YouTube, tumbleweeds, despite having thousands of followers, sometimes into the million. They put out a tweet, no one sees it. That's called censorship, boys and girls. It all started with Alex Jones. They did it with him, that lunatic. It was easy to hate. It's easy to hate him because he's such a fucking cartoon, and he says some ridiculous stuff, hurtful stuff. It's not easy to stomach. And everybody cheered it on. And now it's everybody. All the lefties, all our people are all have gotten silenced, got shadow banned, had their live streams, their feeds choked. And instead of you getting their content suggested to you, you get content from CNN, BBC, the establishment. That's what it's all about. So you've got to follow these people. So you've got to be more proactive. You have to go and choose what was said, choose with your feet, vote with your feet. You choose them, you find them out, because these algorithms will choke them. If you don't go and find them, they'll choke them. You'll never see them. So who do you follow? American politics. I like people like Jimmy Dore. Richard Wolff, he's more of a global economist type of a thing. I got a video from him later. Chris Hedges, my favourite of all time. There are people in the UK. There are people in Ireland. You know who they are. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I guess you know. But those are good starting points. And here, I should actually do that. I should actually list all those people that I go to for my news under these posts, shouldn't I? I think I will. Sorry, my voice is a bit fried, so you'll have to excuse me. I did 12 nights in a row there, as you probably know. So that's the answer to my question. That was my answer to the question. Where's my filter come from? I just don't believe them. I don't believe them anymore. I don't I don't know where they get their where they get any credibility from, or the balls to expect me to believe them after what I've witnessed with my own eyes over the course of my life. What I have seen the media do to the working class and the normal people, in the normal working man and woman, what I've seen them do, I don't know how you can expect me to believe them. And it all started with what? For me, this was my wake-up moment, but I think this is the big one. The Iraq War. It was all a bunch of lies. I knew at the time, my political radar was getting more sensitive and more honed, not instinctively, and I knew it was bullshit. And one of the moments that I'll never forget was whenever they had the 1 million people marched in London to stop the war, the invasion of Iraq. They knew Saddam Hussein didn't have weapons of mass destruction. They knew that Iraq was no threat to us. They knew what America and Britain wanted with Iraq. They wanted to rob it of its resources. They knew, and I knew. And 1 million people descended on London and walked past the BBC. They could have stuck a camera. They could have stuck a camera out the window, and they didn't. So I knew it was all bullshit. And over the course of that intervening 20 years, I don't see anything that would make me change my mind. Not a fucking thing. And in fact, it's gotten worse. Even back then, you would get the anti-war people would get on to the Question Time. They would get on to Newsnight. They would get their voices. They might get challenged. They might get, which is fair enough. But they don't even get on anymore. So they've gotten worse. So that's your starting point. Don't listen to a fucking word they say. Assume they're lying. That's your starting point. It's lies. And you need to prove it. And if you want to, again, give you a current example, the Nord Stream thing. Whenever you're reading the minor pushback from the American state as to why they say they didn't do it, they blamed it on 6 guys in a yacht. There's no information in their reporting. It comes straight from the CIA. And then whenever you look at the journalists that publish it, you see the shit that they've won awards for, and it's just they're spooks. The CIA has infiltrated everything, every news organization in America and across the world. It's all CIA. So there you go. Now, let's do this. So we're going to talk about this next thing. It's all sort of linked. So we know, as you know from the title of this podcast, the French are rioting. Now, why are the French rioting? So here's an article from... not the wrong one. Where are you? Is it that one? No. Oh, there it is. Sorry, excuse me. There we go. Macron signs pension reform into law after top court clears the measure. The ruling was the last institutional hurdle for the government, but is unlikely to quell the protest movement. So, as you know, the French are rioting, and they're very fucking good at it. I wish we were a bit more like that. For the government, the French government want to bring in pension reform from 62 to 64. That's still pretty fucking good. That's still younger than here, younger than America and other places. So the French aren't having it, and fucking proper order. So here's this article from Politico. This is not one of the good guys, by the way. Politico, they're full of shit too, but the article's the article. Yeah, if I see anything in it that stinks, I will flag it for you. France's Constitutional Council ruled Friday in favour of the most contentious part of President Emmanuel Macron's pensions reform bill, this is a couple of weeks back, which raises the legal age of retirement from 64 to 62. In fact, April the 14th, this article was written, which is only a few days ago. Oh, right, okay, sorry, I'm catching up with myself there. However, it chose to block several other measures, including a senior index, which aims at encouraging the employment of senior workers. Some of them were added as sweeteners to the bill to make it more acceptable to trade unions and opposition MPs. The Constitutional Council examined the application of articles invoked by the government. It found that none of the applications have fallen fair enough. Okay, that's getting into the weeds there. Here we go. The government had come under fire during the parliamentary debates about the reforms because it had invoked a controversial constitutional matter known as Article 49.3, as well as other moves that curtailed debates in Parliament. Macron's decision to bypass Parliament and impose his deeply unpopular opinions reform last month led to the prolonged crisis with a gridlock Parliament and continued protests, and so it is. So the French are out rioting and they're setting fire to things and tipping over. They actually that was fucking brilliant. When Macron went to China last week, which he did, to have a word with President Xi Jinping of China, The protesters set fire to his favourite restaurant in Paris. That's a pretty fucking ballsy statement. Not nice to the restaurant, to be fair, but you know. So yeah, so there's that. So Professor Richard Wolff is a professor of economics, a socialist, Marxist. He's referred to as a Marxist economist. He is going to explain a little, and I will explain a little as well. Put this into the wrong one. Well, I'll show you this in the meantime, though.
To Western media like the New York Times, the Washington Post, had you taken your story to the editors there, would they have published such a consequential story basis just one single...
Okay, I'll fuck that up. Give me a second here. Where's this one? There it is. Oh, Jesus, they're sitting right in front of me. Sorry, it has been a minute since I've done these. So Professor Wolff is going to explain a little bit about what's going on in France and why the people are rioting and why they're setting things on fire, why the government want to do what they want to do. And I'll add a wee bit myself. I should add, the bit that I'm going to add, I learned from
right out of the headlines in France today. In France, they have a pension system, quite like the United States. It's more generous than the United States in many ways. It starts earlier at age 62, and it's more generous in terms of the benefits. But it has the same strange quality. What do I mean? Young people pay into the pension system during their working lives. And as that money accumulates, taken out of each paycheck, it forms a fund which is then used to pay the benefits once you're old enough to be pensioned. That is, to stop regular working, to stop putting money into the system, and to begin to be retired and take money out of the system. Now, it is a very strange way to organize what is a social benefit. We don't pay for our defense that way. We don't pay for our roads that way. We don't pay for most of the things that we collectively produce for ourselves. The public parks, the clean air, the lakes, the paths in the woods, and all the other things we do for ourselves as a community. But this pension, arguably more important, is paid for by this arrangement, which means, as any arithmetically sensitive person could figure out in 5 minutes, that if you had a declining birth rate, that is, fewer relative young people and relatively more old people retiring, you could get to a situation like France or the United States today, where it's becoming clear that less money is coming in than we need to cover the pensions coming out. Now, the solution to that is easy and obvious. Change the foundation of the pension system. We're not really going to say, are we,
listening
to the elderly who've given a lifetime of work, that we're not going to honor the pension you have contributed to all your working life, the work you did anticipating a pension, the home you may have bought, the family arrangements you may have made. Are we going to betray all of that because of this peculiar arrangement of... The answer in the United States is the conservatives are trying to do exactly that. And the difference in France is their conservative President Macron has in fact dictated that we're going to do that. He's going.
So, and the same thing's happening here. Pension rates, everything, or pension age, retirement age is going up. We know this. And only someone that's never done a day's fucking labour in their lives would suggest that it's okay to be still working a physical manual job when you're 70 years of age. I've heard 75 get mentioned. Only someone that has never lifted anything other than a fucking themselves onto their fucking exercise bike for their Peloton account, like Rishi Sunak. You can't do it. It's physically, it will kill you.
Going to solve the budgetary problems in France by depriving the working class of his country of 2 years of pension. They're going to have to work 2 years longer putting money in and wait 2 years longer before they pull money out. And guess what? Millions of French people are in the streets for months now saying to the president, you're not going to balance the budget. You mismanaged on our backs. And you know, the struggle in the United States is coming. I mean, we'll have its own form, but it's the same issue.
Same here.
Let me explain it another way. You could have a society break apart, ripped apart by a conflict between old and young. Old people saying, please don't take our pension. Young people saying, I don't want to contribute anymore.
Now, are you listening? This is the thing. This is the important thing. What have they done in this moment? They've created what, boys and girls? A divide in society. They need it. They need that divide. That's how they control. We know this here in Ireland. Divide and conquer. This is what's happened to us. This is what all empires do. And these establishment interests, hedge funds, etc., and these neoliberal government shills, that's what they're doing. It's a divide and conquer tactic. But we're waking up to it, aren't we? We're getting wise to it, aren't we? You are. You're listening to this, so you know it's happening. And if you need another example, of how the divide and conquer, wait to hear this. You won't believe this. The pension reforms that were imposed on the people of France by statute of Macron signing it across like Louis XIV, and we know what happened to him, by decree like a king, applied or wasn't applied to the police and the firefighters. And as a consequence, the police and the firefighters are fighting the rioters. They have divided their own society. And this pension reform is that in its entirety. But they literally didn't apply the pension reforms to the cops and to the firefighters, and which meant that the cops and the firefighters are out protecting property and fighting the rioters. And one of the rioters was shot the other day, not by a plastic bullet. You're not seeing that in your fucking BBC, are you? Right, back to the video.
To give you a pension. Old versus young. Societies have been ripped apart in this way. Do we really want to have that here? Do we really want to save taxes on corporations and the rich? Because that's all it takes to put the funds in the Social Security system needed to honor the commitment made to the people who've given a lifetime of work.
So what he's saying is, this is a choice. They have chosen to, instead of take the money that is needed to fund, no one's denying that the pension system needs funded more than it has been. People are living longer. But what we're saying is take the money to fund it from who? From the people that have the fucking money. It's simple. They've got it. We take it. Done. We're finished. That's it. We're done. The story's over. We take it. We don't leave them impoverished. We don't leave them dying in a ditch. They're still fucking rich. They're still the richest bastards that have ever existed. They still get to be that. They still live a life of luxury. They still will never know the sting of labour. The only sweat they'll ever experience is from a fucking sauna. They'll not know what it's like to go home so fucking exhausted from manual labour every day that you can't engage with your society, with your family. You can't develop yourself as an individual. They'll never know that. They will still never know that. It's only you and me, brother and sister, that will know that. It's only us, the working class, that will ever know that. Even still, after we take the money off them and put it in to the pension fund. That's all this is. That's what this is. The money's there. I'll show you when Professor Wolf is finished speaking.
On the job, in the home, wherever. I think I know the answer where most Americans come down on that question. Just like Mr. Macron knew he was going to have a fight on his hands when he dared to take away the pensions of the people of France. These are profound questions. But I want to show you all, in a final word, that behind it all is an ugly struggle. It's a struggle among the different social groups over who pays taxes and who doesn't. Over a century ago, we began the progressive income tax here in the United States. Progressive means the higher your income, the higher the percentage. In other words, we tax people according to their ability to pay. That was a progressive idea. It came into law. But the rich in this country hated it. They wanted the burden of taxes to be mainly on other people, and that has never changed. Just like corporations don't want to pay taxes and push it on others. For them, they like a tax like the Social Security tax, which is not progressive here in the United States, which takes the same percentage from everybody except the super rich who get a lower percentage. It's not just not progressive, it's the opposite. It's regressive. That's what this is really about. Who pays? It's a destruction of the notion of community. We're all going to hunker on to our bit and resist anybody who comes and says, we have collective needs, let's solve them in a collective way. That's the real issue behind all of this. Yep. That's the best way to handle the demographic changes that happen as part of the lives we lead, rather than letting them be tortured and corrupted by a system that is constantly setting us one against the other. If discussions of issues like this are interesting to you, please consider partnering with us, sharing these videos with coworkers, friends, and colleagues. If you would like to be informed of all of this kind of work that we do, please join our mailing list by going to our website, democracyatwork.info. And of course, if you can donate a little to help us defray.
So there you go. Go and follow Professor Wolf on Democracy at Work. He's brilliant. I'm a huge fan. And he has explained to you perfectly there what the problem is, where the money can come from to fill in the gap, and what the tactic is by the neoliberal capitalist establishment. Their tactic is divide and conquer, to create a divide. We're still talking about divide. We're going to go on to the next thing in a moment. So I told you I was going to show you prove to you about the productivity, or sorry, where the money's going to come from. And this is it here. So the money is going to come from where the money has to come from the people that fucking have it. Simple as that. So this is an article by the Economic Policy Institute. Now, I don't know who these, I'm not overly familiar with these guys. I don't know if they're left wing, right wing, or neither. I really don't know. But you can see there on the screen, they have the productivity pay gap is the title of the article. Now, again, it's American centric, but the same applies in most of the instances, most of the points. So, most Americans believe that a rising tide should lift all boats, that as the economy expands, everybody should reap the rewards. This outcome can be guaranteed by smart, compassionate policy choices or subverted by policymakers choosing a different path. The EPA's productivity pay tracker shows the shift towards the latter. Since the 1970s, our policy choices have led directly to a pronounced divergence between productivity and typical workers' pay. Now, simply productivity and the productivity pay gap means that as workers, we have our productivity, the amount of product that we produce as a society, as workers as a whole, has risen, but our pay hasn't kept track. So you can see here, this is an American example again, but the figures are similar across Europe and other places. The change between 1979 and 2021, productivity has gone up 64.6%. The hourly pay, 17.3%. Productivity has grown 3.7 times as much as pay. Now, why is that a problem? Because pay doesn't match inflation. So then when you bring inflation into the equation, a 17.3% rise in pay over 40 years represents a pay cut. So do you see why it's important to keep these things tracked with each other? And these are policy choices. These were made by these establishment institutions, the banking class and others, lobbying politicians, bribing them. I think lobbying should be illegal. All lobbying should be illegal. No one should be allowed to lobby a politician. And if a politician takes as so much as my dad would say, a penny chew off of anybody for free, he should be sacked. He should be jailed, I believe, because it's corruption. So, productivity, what is productivity and why do pay and productivity once climb together? So I've just explained to you what productivity was. As productivity grows and each hour of work generates more and more income over time, it creates the potential for improving living standards across the board. And this is important to understand this, because this is the promise of capitalism. We will do these things and we will be better off. Now, there's no doubt about it. I would rather be alive today than 100 years ago, I think. We certainly would have been, I could say the same maybe 20 or 30 years ago, but well, yeah, I would say that's a fair statement. But the promise of capitalism is that we're all going to, as we produce more, as we work harder, we're going to be better off for it. But we can see over the course, again, the evidence of your own eyes, believe the evidence of your own eyes. We can see over the course of our lifetimes that these things haven't happened. This promise hasn't been kept. We can see quite starkly, I would suggest, since the 2008-2009 global financial crash, we can see that promise has definitely not happened. Now, we can analyse the data going back further, like this graph, and prove that hasn't been happening, and this is why. And we can see that this gap in the graph here has gone out. I'm circling it in the thing. You can see it moving. And it's just gone out. I mean, you can see that it's sort of relatively flat, certainly by comparison to the productivity. So, For the people that are listening to this, there's a graph on the screen. An hourly pay since the split point here is 1979. It's gone up 107. It's 117.3% what it was in 1979 versus 164.6% in 2021. So the next paragraph here reads, if the fruits of economic growth are not going to workers, where are they going? The growing wedge between productivity and typical workers' pay is income going everywhere but the paychecks of the bottom 80% of workers. If it didn't end up in the paychecks of typical workers, where did all the income growth implied by the rising productivity line go? Two places. Basically, to the salaries of the highly paid corporate and professional employees, and it went into higher profits, i.e. towards returns to shareholders and other wealth owners. This concentration of wage income at the top and the shift of income from labour overall towards capital owners are the two key drivers of economic inequality since the 1970s. And then the article goes on. Now, you will not struggle to find articles like that on the internet. Google them, you'll find them. They're everywhere. So that's where the money's going to come from. Take it from them. They will still be rich. They'll still be the richest people that have ever lived. You know, I have a problem with that too. I have solutions. Believe me. I have binders full of solutions. Sorry, that was a little Mitt Romney joke there. So that's where it is. Now, the establishment, such as it is in our government class of people and our capitalist class of people, will want, by moving the pension retirement age in France from 62 to 64, what they're saying, that is saying what? So they don't want to pay for it. They don't want their profits taken from them in order to fund this. To fund the retirement of the workers that give them the profits. They don't want that. So who do they suggest? By moving the retirement age, they suggest the workers pay for it. The workers work an extra 2 years, which funds the retirement. What happens to the retirement funds? It goes into what? Hedge funds and the likes that these same bankers will use to make ever increasing profits that I've just illustrated on the screen. So do you see how sick it all is? And up the workers in France. Vive la France. I hope they get what they deserve. And I hope a few of these CEOs' heads end up on a spike. And I mean that. I wrote a new Bonneville song. It's called Guillotines. You can imagine what it's about. And it'll be going on our new album, I think. I do like it. So, while now this is we're still talking about the divide and conquer thing, right? So, how long have we been going? Right, okay, 50 minutes. We're nearly done. The divide and conquer thing. This is important that you understand this. Now, it's kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's not. It is related. In America, people are protesting. Not everybody now, to be fair, and we must give everything its proper scale as well, because Bud Light, so-called beer, partnered with a trans influencer, and now people are shooting their tins of Bud Light in the woods. So while the people of France are protesting for their pension reform, a country like America, which is the richest country that has ever existed, is where their pension age, I think their retirement age is 69. There's no universal health care. There's no There's people living under every bridge. There's a homelessness issue. We know all the issues that America has while its government is waging wars in the four corners of the earth. 50% of its discretionary spending all goes into the military-industrial complex. They're starting proxy wars all over the place. And Americans are working themselves to death, increasingly. And this is what people are protesting about. And this is the point I'm trying to make with this. The trans issue is a wedge. It's called a wedge. There's a wee wedge there, actually, just for tuning a piano. But it goes in and it divides us. Same as what the French government did with the cops and the firefighters on one side of the pension reforms, and the ordinary worker on the other side. That's what this is. That's all this is. All this trans stuff, all the stuff that you're hearing at the minute, is all about dividing us. My own opinion with trans people, it is a hot topic right now. Trans people are the most marginalised people in our society. Mental health issues. They're villainised unbelievably. There are issues there, but there are people that are exploiting it. And I will say this, including some trans people. The trans athlete thing is fucking ridiculous. If you were a man, I don't think you should be. When it comes to MMA especially, some woman got her head punched in a few weeks ago. I think that's nuts. I don't understand how that's a thing. There was a clear physical difference between these two, and I have questions about that. But again, scale is important. We're talking about literally a handful of people. I would say that those trans people aren't doing their trans argument any favours whatsoever. They're being held up as examples of a normalised thing that happens, and it is not. It is abnormal for a trans woman to compete against other athletes. But I will say this, until the women that they're competing against or speak up and do something about it, I don't think anything's going to change. Those athletes need to do that themselves, and I'll back them as long as they're not being vile. There was a fucking an anti-trans rally here in Belfast just yesterday, I think it was, the day before, and the fucking pond life that showed up at that, you know, pond life that showed up at that. We need to understand that our trans brothers and sisters need our support. But anyone that's going to go and destroy every swimming record that a state has had for a decade needs to stop doing that. That's ridiculous. You need to stop that. That's my opinion anyway, and I'm being very brave by voicing it, I think, but yeah, not that I give a fuck. But and I say that, and by the way, I know I have a very, 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 very dear and close friend, someone I've known 30 years, who has a child that is transitioning, and we've had conversations about these things, and I understand this. I understand some of the sensitivities as much as I can. So, and I consider myself to be an ally. But we need to understand that the trans thing is another thing that's being used to divide us. While we're arguing about trans things, and I'm not arguing about trans things, while people are doing what I'm about to show you, you're getting your pocket picked, son. Watching this now. This is hilarious. This is an item from NBC News.
Light facing some backlash over its partnership with a trans influencer. Take a look. There's a video posted by Kid Rock that has more than 1 million views, hundreds of comments praising him for shooting at cases of Bud Light. Other videos posted online show people like dumping their Bud Light into trash bins and down sinks, even destroying cans of the beer. Why? Well, Bud Light had teamed up with trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney during the NCAA's March Madness college basketball tournament. And while March Madness has officially wrapped up by now, it seems like the response to this partnership just seems to be getting more and more intense. Jay Valle, who's been following this story, is here with us now. Explain this. Explain the timeline here.
Well, after Dylan posted that, Hallie, thank you for having me, first of all. But, you know, after Dylan posted this video, I mean, a lot of backlash came mostly from conservatives. And then when you have those individuals and with larger platforms like Kid Rock, you can imagine the conversation ignited even more. But Dylan Mulvaney is no stranger to the backlash from conservatives who, you know, as she has 10 million followers on TikTok, and she's a trans woman who has documented her experience for over a year now. You know, I assume now that Dylan received backlash on a daily basis, so she did not respond to our request for comment.
What are we hearing from Bud Light on this?
Yeah, Bud Light, I mean, the last 48 hours, as these videos have thousands of views, they did not ignore what conversations were being sparked, and Bud Light sent a statement, actually. Anheuser-Busch works with hundreds of influencers across their brands, and as many ways to authentically connect with their audiences across various demographics is to partner with these influencers. So, I mean, as at this point, I mean, these videos, again, continuing to flow in, and that backlash is pretty intense there. You know, that Kid Rock.
I personally am offended by Bud Light. That's the end of the sentence. It's fucking piss. It really is absolute fucking piss. I mean, why would you? I think it should be shot into the sun, and the people that fucking make it and drink it should probably be sent. I mean, it is rancid piss. So, there we go. So, do you see, this isn't about trans people. Trans people are being used. This is bullshit. The person that I know that is trans is practically a hermit. She's afraid to come out of her house. When she goes, when she goes out of the house, her mother's terrified she's going to be beaten to death in the street. I have sympathy for that person. It breaks my heart to think about that, because I know this is a good person. I know this person comes from a good family, and I know that her mother is sick, literally, with worry. So while Americans are shooting tins of Bud Light because Bud Light partnered with a trans influencer, the French are rioting to save their pension reforms. But the establishments are using wedge, divide and conquer tactics to get what they want, which is what? Money. Where does the money come from? Where all money comes from. The labour of the worker. No worker, no money. No money, no fun. You need to understand this. I thank God I was able to give up that fucking job I had. I was going to work on a train, 6:30 in cold, wet winter mornings, to go and do 12-hour shifts, driving, being paid little over minimum wage, pennies over minimum wage. Glad of the job when I got it, because I did need it. But I don't feel grateful to the company. Fuck the company. They're exploiting me. I should have been paid double. I should be getting paid double what I was getting paid. So should you. But who is getting paid? Some motherfucker that owns stocks and shares is getting the sweat of my labour. They get a check twice a year, put through their letterbox, and they cash it. And who earned that money? Did they earn that money? Because they got inherited some wealth. They inherited stocks from a dead relative. And I have to go and get up at 6 in the fucking morning to go and drive for 12 hours so that motherfucker can live a life of luxury in a penthouse in New York. Bollocks it. Fuck that cunt. So there we go. We're done. Listen, nice to be back. I'm going to post my new schedule. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do one podcast a week, one live stream a week, and I'm going to bring on more guests. These are time consuming, trust me. It's not just the hour that it takes for to record them, and there's post, got to break the video down, I got to upload the video, got to pull the audio out, upload the audio. Bleh. Does anybody want to help? So there we go, I'm done. Come follow me on Twitter, on Instagram. I've got a new Instagram, by the way, dedicated to the podcast. I'm not just using my own music pages, which was a terrible idea now I think about it. And of course you can follow me on Patreon, where you'll get early access to all of these for £1 a month. That's it. I have one tier, £1. We're done. If you want in, you get it. If you don't want in, you get it anyway. Helps keeps the lights on. So there we go. Alright, cheerio friends, stay in touch, and please, as always, like, share, subscribe, and share. Gotta share this stuff to get it out there. Okay, toodle pip.